Good morning, everybody. It is a beautiful morning. It is a fantastic time to worship the Lord. I got one amen, but I trust that everyone here believes that. First Corinthians chapter 4, verse 2 says, "Moreover, it is required in stewards that a man be found faithful." And this morning I want us to think about the idea of stewardship. Think about what God has entrusted to us. And I would like us to think about how we as Christians can make wise decisions with what God has trusted to us. Now in 1 Corinthians chapter 4, Paul's talking about stewards of the gospel. And we certainly have a responsibility to be servants and to follow Christ. But God has given us so much more. And He expects us as Christians to serve Him faithfully and to use what we have been given in the right way. This morning, let's consider a few things about Christian stewardship. And there's some principles. And the first thing I want us to realize is nothing that we have, whether it's our money, whether it's our property, whether it's anything on this earth, nothing that we have belongs to us. And if we understand this principle, then it's really easy to grasp the idea of stewardship. It's really easy to understand that God doesn't want me, for example, going to a casino and trying to throw everything I have away so that I can get more money. Well, this is God's money, not mine. So I need to. It's easy to understand that once I understand that I am a steward. I am managing something that God has given to me. Whether it be my money, whether it be the things that I own, whether it be, well, how about those close to us? Does our family belong to us? We say our family, but really what are the people that are close to us? They're gifts from God, and He has given us, for example, children. They are given to us by God. They're not ours, they're God's. And as parents, we have a responsibility to raise them in the nurture and in the admonition of the Lord as stewards of what God has given to us. Therefore, when I take care of my child, I'm taking care of a soul that ultimately needs to go back to God. So everything that I have, therefore, is on loan from Him. Psalm chapter 24, verse 1 says this. It says, first of all, a psalm of David. Then it says, "The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. For He founded it upon the seas and established it upon the floods." God owns the earth. God owns, and it says, the fullness thereof, everything on the earth. Why is that? Why does God own everything on the earth? It's an easy concept. He created it. He founded the earth upon the seas. Remember when there was nothing but water and God caused land to rise out of the water? He formed it into a ball, and He put seas and land, and He put plants, and He put animals, and then He put us on that ball. He gave us everything that we have. He gave us life. And because He founded everything, because He created everything, He gets to call it His. So the earth is the Lord's. Now in the book of Job, Job learns a couple of lessons toward the end of the book. You remember, Job suffered, and most of the book of Job deals with a back and forth conversation, and I don't know how long it took for this conversation to happen, but it was a back and forth between Job and between his so-called friends. And Job wanted his day in court, so to speak. He kept saying, I have no one to redeem me. I have no way that I can stand before God and plead my case. Job believed that he was innocent. And he thought that if he could only plead his case before God, then maybe he could get his suffering taken away. Job was wrong in that sense. But he was right in the fact that God was worthy of worship. And he was right in, well, God even said he was right at the end of the book. When he was talking to Job's friends, God said, you haven't spoken correctly about me like Job did. So Job got it right. But he still wanted his day in court with God. And in Job chapter 41, we get the lesson of the Leviathan. And there's an interesting lesson here that has to do with our topic. Wait a minute. The Leviathan teaches us about stewardship. Leviathan teaches us about God. And in Job chapter 41, actually chapters 40 and 41, in chapter 40 we get Behemoth, which was I believe that's a description of a dinosaur. Now you'll get some commentators who will say, well, that's the hippo, but the description says it's got a strong tail. And have you ever seen the tail of a hippo? So the behemoth is a mighty creature. And then you have Leviathan, which was a sea creature. And there's some amazing description in Job chapter 41 about this incredible creature. He asks in verse 1, canst thou draw out Leviathan with a hook, or his tongue with a cord which thou lettest down? Are you able to cast a line into the sea, go fishing for him, catch him with a hook and pull him out? You able to do that? Is he going to, I like verse 3, will he make many supplications unto thee? Will he speak soft words with thee? No, this is a ferocious being, a sea creature, the likes of which we've never seen. If you look in verse 15, it says, his scales are his pride shut up together as with a close seal. Verse 14, who can open the doors of his face? His teeth are terrible round about. Verse 19, out of his mouth go burning lamps and sparks of fire leap out. Wait a minute, are you talking about a creature with teeth that breathes fire? Well, that's what God was talking about with Job. You say, well, we usually call that a dragon, but those are mythological creatures, aren't they? I would ask the question, why does every single culture in the world have that myth? If it's a false creature, why did every single culture think up something that breathes fire? And why does everybody know about the dragon? From China to the cultures in Europe to just look everywhere, and there's this beast. Well, maybe it was a real beast at one time, like the dinosaurs. It's certainly possible, and actually, Apologetics Press has some great material regarding Behemoth and regarding Leviathan, and if you're interested in these, I'd say that's the first place to go to study these. But in any case, Leviathan is this terrifying creature. But God gives a lesson in the middle of this chapter. It's in verses 10 and 11. And instead of talking about Leviathan, he uses Leviathan to teach Job something about himself. And it's the lesson that Job needed to learn. Remember, this is toward the end of God's, I wouldn't call it a rebuke of Job, but he tells Job to basically pull your pants up, Job, and get ready. Gird up your loins. and be prepared to give me an answer. And then he asks Job all of these questions, and he finishes it with Leviathan. And he says in verses 10 and 11, none is so fierce that dare stir him up. Nobody's going to dare stir Leviathan from his home in the deep. Who then is able to stand before me? Oh, there's a lesson. And then he says in verse 11, who hath prevented me that I should repay him? Whatsoever is under the whole heaven is mine. So are you going to stand before me? Are you going to argue your case before me? You can't even stand before one of the creatures that I created, Leviathan. Nobody dares to stir him up. Why do you think you can stand before me? And God's point is, even the ferocious creatures are mine. And that shows us just how mighty and how magnificent God is. I find it amazing how many people ridicule and mock God. If you want to find people who do that, they're easy to find. You look anywhere these days, and you'll find people ridiculing God and mocking God. Imagine them standing before a fire-breathing beast. What would they do? They would tremble in fear. Why do people think that they could stand before God when they wouldn't stand before a ferocious beast? How about a lion? How about a lion? Or a tiger, or some ferocious predator? Go ahead. You got your fists. Go ahead and challenge a grizzly bear. You going to do that? No. What happens when a grizzly bear comes? Are you going to say, let's fight? I know there was that one commercial where the guy fought the grizzly bear. It was pretty hilarious. But no, you stand before a grizzly bear, what are you going to do? Your life is going to flash before your eyes. You're going to feel complete terror, and then you will die. Yet people think they can just stand before God and shout insults and hurl challenges. God says, no, the world is mine. And if you can't stand before the greatest of my creations, why do you think you can stand before me? And this is something that when we think about stewardship, everything that we have belongs to God. Now, if I'm not going to stand before a wild beast and challenge him, do I need to maybe be careful with the things that God has entrusted me to take care of? And this is the second point. Firstly, God owns everything. Secondly, God entrusts us with what we have. And for this idea, I want us to go back to the beginning. Genesis chapter 1. If we look at verse 27, the Bible says, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. And God blessed them. And God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it. Now look at this. And have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. Who's at the top of the food chain? We are, aren't we? Sure, I don't want to stand before a wild beast. I don't want to get into a fight with a grizzly bear, but guess what? Some people do. Why is that? Because we're smarter than the grizzly bear. And we know that you don't take on a grizzly bear with your fists. You get yourself a nice long-distance weapon, a rifle of some sort, and you take him out with one pull of your finger. So even the strongest of beasts, well, we're at the top of the food chain now. And God says, subdue the earth. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. You know, if Leviathan were still alive today, we would have him in SeaWorld somewhere. We would. He'd be in SeaWorld as an attraction, right next to Shamu. We would subdue. If the dinosaurs were alive today, you better believe there'd be a Jurassic Park. Because that's just what human beings do. But see, God gave us responsibility. God put us over this. He entrusted us as stewards of the earth. From the very beginning when He created man and female, He said, I've given you this earth. He says in verse 29, Behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed which is upon the face of the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for food, or for meat, the King James says, food. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creeps upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat. And it was so. And God saw everything that He made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. So this is the sixth day of creation. God creates man, and He says, the earth is yours. You are stewards of it. Now, how should we treat what we are stewards of? How should we care for what God has given us? Look at chapter 2, verses 8 and 9. And the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there He put man whom He had formed, and out of the ground made the Lord God to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, and the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And in verse 15 it says, The Lord God took man and put him in the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. Now, I don't think Adam had money at this time, but he still had responsibility, didn't he? God put him in the garden, and before He even created Eve, He gave him the responsibility of naming the animals, of keeping the garden. And then He created Eve, and it was their job to keep the garden until they sinned and they were cast out. But God has made human beings stewards. He entrusts us with the things that we have. Now, this applies not just to this applies not just to the animals and the plants, but this would apply to the gifts that He has given to us. And with this idea of God entrusting us with the things we have, I want us finally to think about another idea. Since God has entrusted us with so much, He's going to hold us accountable. And as stewards, we will be held accountable for the things that God has given to us. Now, this is a broad thing. Is it our money? He's going to hold us accountable to how we use our money. Are they our gifts? Your skills? The things that you have that make you you? God's going to hold us accountable for that. Jesus told a couple of parables like this. He told a parable, for example, of the talents, where a man gave some of his servants talents. And a talent, well, that's money, but he's talking about people's abilities. And He holds them accountable. The man who had 10 talents or 5 talents made 5 more through industry and through labor. He took responsibility for what God had given to him. The man who had 2 talents also took responsibility. He worked and he made 2 more talents. And the man who had 1 talent did nothing. There's a similar parable to that, and it's in Luke chapter 19, verses 11 through 27. It's similar. I have, my heading says the parable of the 10 minas or minas. And in the King James, it uses the word pound. Verse 13. Verse 11 says, A certain nobleman went into a far country to receive for himself a kingdom and to return, and he called his 10 servants It's not just 3 this time, it's 10 servants. And he delivered to them 10 pounds. Now the word mina, in the Greek, it's actually M-N-A, so mna, which is really weird to pronounce. We call it a mina. It's a unit of weight. That's why in the King James it's translated as pound, but other more modern translations just use the word mina. They just transliterate it because it was just a unit of measure, and it's something that you'd weigh out your money. So it was something that they used for money. But anyway, everybody has a pound. He delivers his 10 servants and gives them 10 pounds, or 10 minas, one each, I guess. Verse 15, it says, "It came to pass that when he was returned, having received the kingdom, then he commanded these servants to be called unto him, to whom he had given the money, that he might know how much every man had gained by trading. Then came the first, saying, Lord, thy pound, or thy mina, has gained 10 more. That's pretty good. And he said unto him, Well, thou good servant, because thou hast been faithful in a very little, have thou authority over 10 cities. And the second came, saying, Lord, thy pound hath gained 5 pounds. And he said likewise unto him, Be thou also over 5 cities. And another came, saying, Lord, behold, here is thy pound, which I have kept laid up in a napkin. For I feared thee, because thou art an austere man. Thou takest up that thou layest not down, thou reapest that thou did not sow. And he saith unto him, Out of thine own mouth will I judge thee, thou wicked servant. Thou knewest that I was an austere man, taking up that I laid not down, and reaping that I did not sow. Wherefore then gavest not thou my money into the bank, that at my coming I might have required mine own with usury, or interest? And he said to them that stood by, Take from him the pound, and give it to him that has 10 pounds. And they said unto him, Lord, he has 10 pounds. For I say unto you that unto every one which hath shall be given, and from him that hath not, even that he hath shall be taken away from him. Now there's some interesting principles in this parable, and it's different from the parable of the talents. Everybody is given the same amount in this. In the parable of the talents, one is given 5, one is given 2, one is given 1. So the parable of the talents, there's this idea that everybody has these different abilities. Well, that idea is presented here, but in a different way. Everybody's given the same, but one taking one pound or 1 mina and making 10 out of it. That's pretty good, isn't it? It's like 1,000%. You do that in business, you're going somewhere. And somebody who takes 1 and makes 5, that's nothing to scoff at either. But notice, God gives the one who makes 10, he gives him authority over a lot, 10 cities. Why is that? Well, because this man is competent. This man, he takes what he is given and he works hard. And through his diligent labor, through his competence, through his skill, he is rewarded with more responsibility. Well, that's how things should be, isn't it? Those people who are best at the things they do should be given the responsibility because they're good at what they do. And likewise, the people who are given responsibility and don't do anything with it, their responsibility is taken away. You say, well, that's not fair. This man didn't lose anything, yeah, but he didn't take what he had and make something with it. So he was given responsibility and he did nothing with it. And he's held accountable. You say, well, it's not fair. And the people said, Lord, this guy has 10 minas. Why are you giving him more? Well, because he can handle more. He deserves to have more because of what he's done. Some people today would say, well, that's not fair. You should distribute it all equally. But that's not how it works, is it? The people who are the most competent get the most responsibility. Also, they're paid the most. And that's fair. Once again, some people would say that's not fair. But it's even a principle in the Bible. God has entrusted us as stewards with so many things. And he understands that some are going to make 1,000% increase. Some are going to make 500%. Go over to the parable of the talents. You have a 2-talent man and he doubled what he had. Pretty good. He's got 4 talents now. But you know what's unacceptable is having stewardship of what God has given to you and doing nothing with it. Wasting it away. He said, at least you could have put it in the bank and gotten some interest on it. At least you can show some sort of a gain. God is going to hold us accountable for what he has given to us. And remember, the first principle that we've been given, God owns everything. Now let's finish with Luke chapter 12. In verses 16 through 21, Jesus speaks another parable, and it says, the ground of a certain rich man brought forth plentifully. And he thought within himself, saying, what shall I do, because I have no room where to bestow my fruits? And he said, this I will do. I got an idea. I'll do this. I'll pull down my barns, and I'll build greater, and there I will bestow all my fruits and my goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, thou hast much goods laid up for many years. Take thine ease, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said unto him, thou fool, this night thy soul shall be required of thee. Then whose shall those things be which thou hast provided? And here's the lesson that Jesus gives from this. So is he that lays up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. This is the definition of bad stewardship, isn't it? Laying up treasure for yourself and not for God. God has entrusted us with so much. And we can apply this to money. We can apply this to our families. We can apply this to the things that we possess. And we can also apply this to the gospel that he's given to us. He's given us so much. What are we going to do with it? Are we going to waste it away selfishly? Or are we going to take responsibility for it? Are we going to do the work that God requires of us as Christians? This is what it means to be a good steward. Do we recognize God's ownership of everything, and will we take responsibility for it? We're going to sing an invitation song now. And as we do, consider this thought. You are also a steward of your own soul. God has given you a soul, and Jesus said, he asked the question, what shall a man trade in exchange for his soul? So we understand then that your soul is of incalculable value. And you have the responsibility for it. What will you do with your soul? Are you going to waste it away because you're selfish? And this is amazing. It's an amazing thought. People who are selfish, thinking only of themselves, what they do is they throw their soul away and condemn themselves. Doesn't seem like a very self-serving thing, but once again, that selfishness mixed with unbelief. They don't believe that they will go to hell if they reject God. But if you read what the scriptures say, and you truly believe that God exists, and one day we will stand before him, regardless of whether we want to or not. We know that our only option is obedience. What will you do today? If you are not a Christian, will you be baptized into the name of Christ? If you are a Christian who's strayed away, will you return? Come now, while together we stand and sing.